If you've been rear-ended in Georgia, you might think your settlement is straightforward, but insurance companies see it differently. Sure, the rear driver is usually at fault, but what if they blame a sudden stop? Or what if their insurance won't cover all your damages? I'm Peter Jaraysi, a personal injury lawyer who has dealt with thousands of car accident cases, and I've seen victims that settled too soon only to realize later that their injuries cost way more than they thought. In this video, I'll show you how to find out what your case is actually worth so you don't make the same mistake. Make sure you stick around to the end because the last one can determine how much you can get out of your case. If you've been rear-ended, you might assume your case is open and shut. The rear driver is at fault, right? Most of the time, yes. But insurance companies don't just hand out settlements without a fight. Here's what they might argue to shift blame onto you. The most common one I see is sudden stops. They might claim that you slammed on your brakes unexpectedly, and they'll argue that you share partial fault under Georgia's comparative negligence law. Another argument that I see is in multiple car pileup situations. If another car hit the driver behind you first, liability can get really complicated really quickly because then the question becomes, how many impacts did you feel? Did the other person hit you first? Did you cause it? It just gets really, really complex. And then the last one we'll see is like blame on brake failure or other road hazards. If the rear driver claims a mechanical issue in their vehicle or that there was an unexpected obstacle that caused them to hit you, you might see some pushback from the insurance companies there. Now, like we said, most times in situations like this, the insurance companies are going to accept fault. But in case they don't, here's a pro tip. In any case, whether they accept fault or not, make sure you always get a copy of the police report. This document plays a huge role in determining fault. If it's possible, look for traffic cameras or dash cam footage that may have caught the accident from another angle. Having this evidence is essential. Now, getting into the value of your case. The biggest factor in your settlement value is the severity of your injuries. The more serious your injuries are, the higher your medical costs, the longer your recovery time, and the bigger the payout. Generally, the more minor injuries like soft tissue injuries, whiplash, muscle strains, they'll typically settle on the lower end of the spectrum. We're looking anywhere from like $5,000 to $20,000. Now, as we get to more serious injuries like spinal cord injuries, herniated discs, fractures, things that require surgery, now we're getting into the six-figure range, even to the high six-figure range. Now, this is a very unique type of injury, right? Traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injuries or any permanent cognitive issues, those can push the cases into the millions depending on your long-term care needs. But at the end of the day, the value really depends on your specific case and your circumstances. It depends on how intrusive these injuries are into your life. Are you requiring constant care? Do you need someone to help you? Is there constant interference in your life because of the injuries that you sustained? And that's why this range is so big, right? We started at 5,000 and you can end up in millions of dollars. Again, it really just depends on how serious or severe your injuries are, and finally at how much insurance coverage is available. Now I'll tell you this, even if your pain seems minor, you should always seek medical attention as soon as possible. If you get delayed treatment, that usually results in insurance companies arguing that the injuries you have are not serious. Make sure you keep a detailed log of all your symptoms. Some injuries like whiplash get worse over time, and insurance companies try to downplay this all the time. Now, I know we discussed ranges of value in cases like soft tissue cases or spinal cord injuries and things like that, but there's also other considerations like your medical bills or the long-term impact that the incident is going to have on your life. Insurance companies love to focus on your current medical bills when it comes to their valuation, but really that's only a small part of the equation. When it comes time to settling your case, you need to make sure certain things are covered. In addition to your past medical bills, you need to make sure that the insurance company is considering any future medical treatment that you need for the injuries that you sustained. The way you do this is by getting your doctors to document the future need for medical treatment. This is something they need to put directly into the medical records. In addition to any sort of future therapy or anything like that, make sure they're including any surgeries or procedures that you might need in the future. They don't have to know for sure whether you need it or not. It's a standard of reasonable probability. That means it's more likely than not that it's going to be necessary for you to get the procedures that they're recommending. Now remember, if your doctor recommends future treatment, make sure it's documented in your medical records. I cannot emphasize this enough. This dramatically increases the value of your case. And finally, don't settle before you complete your initial round of treatment. Once you sign that release and you've accepted the settlement amount, you cannot come back for more later, even if new symptoms develop. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are two big things that determine the value of your case. It's the severity of the injury and the coverage available in your case. Even if the rear driver is 100% at fault, there is one major issue that could limit your payout: their insurance policy limits. The problem is this: if their policy maxes out at $25,000, but your medical bills are $50,000 or more, the insurance company won't pay beyond that limit unless they are forced through some very special means. The thing is, 99% of the time in a situation like that, the insurance company is just going to go ahead, pay out the insurance limits, and say, you know what, we're done. And that might come as a surprise to most people. They think, well, this person rear-ended me. They should be responsible for the full extent of my injuries. But that's not actually the case. And I tell this to people all the time: you have to protect yourself. And the way you protect yourself in a situation like this is by having uninsured motorist coverage or underinsured motorist coverage. This is coverage that you purchase on your own policy that comes into play when the insurance on the other person's vehicle is insufficient to cover your damages. And it's a lot cheaper than you might think. Having this coverage on your policy can make a huge, huge difference. And as far as your premiums every single month, it's almost negligible. The only other way to get a settlement above the policy limits from an insurance company directly is through what's called a bad faith failure to settle action. Now, this is a huge point of leverage in a case if you're able to get it, but the thing is, it doesn't happen often. What you have to effectively do is submit an offer to the insurance company for the limits of the policy, and your case has to be one that any reasonable insurance company in that insurance company's position would accept it, no questions asked. And the thing is, if that insurance company fails to accept the offer and fails to settle the case, then they have now opened themselves up to what's called extra contractual liability, meaning that you can get more than just the listed policy limits on the policy. Now, this is such a nuanced area of the law that most people don't really understand how it works. But the thing is, this is what leads insurance companies to pay attorneys out on cases like this, so that there's a way to punish insurance companies if they don't pay claims that definitely should settle for the limits. That's why that exists. One of the big problems with bad faith failure to settle claims is that they often take a long time to prosecute. Typically, what you have to do is take a case all the way through trial, get a judgment against the defendant, and then file a lawsuit against the insurance company claiming that they should have settled the case way back when, instead of having the case go all the way to trial where you got a verdict in excess of the listed policy limits. Now, I know this is getting hyper technical, but it's a really, really important point. This is one of the only ways you can get above the policy limits, so I want to make sure y'all understand it. Now, here's a pro tip: a strong demand letter outlining clear liability and damages in excess of the policy limits can pressure insurers to settle properly instead of risking a bad faith claim against them. And here's another one: if the at-fault driver was on the job during the accident, their employer may also be liable, which can lead to a much higher payout. Generally, employers have much higher coverage on their policies, so that gives you a lot more opportunity to collect more on your case. All right, so let's recap. 1. Liability, yes, it's usually on the rear end driver, but there are certain instances where insurance companies might try to shift the blame. 2. The more serious your injuries, the higher your settlement, so getting proper medical documentation is key. 3. Your medical costs shouldn't just cover today's bills. Future care and lost wages must be factored in. Number 4. If the at-fault driver is underinsured, there are still ways to recover more through uninsured motorist coverage or underinsured motorist coverage, or through holding the insurance company accountable for a bad faith failure to settle. Again, your case could be worth anywhere from $5,000 to millions of dollars. It all depends on the extent of your injuries and the available insurance coverage in a case. We just covered how to find the true value of your rear end case. But are you getting the maximum payout possible? Check out this next video where I cover the 5 tips to get the maximum payout for your car accident injury case.